In his 2004 presidential campaign, Howard Dean used technology in new and interesting ways to engage the electorate, and that was an agenda he continued in his role as head of the DNC. Nina Easton, who is Fortune's Washington editor, is a keen observer of the political scene, and she is here today to talk with Howard Dean about the way technology is impacting government, governance, politics, and healthcare. Please welcome Nina Easton and Howard Dean.
I thought we got rid of these.
A very good point.
I was so happy drinking out of my glass. Welcome, everybody, and welcome, Governor Dean.
Thank you.
We have a lot of territory to cover in only, I'm told, 13 minutes and 50 seconds. And so I'm going to jump actually to the last subject in the title of this session, and that's healthcare. That's because there's a titanic, historic battle going on in Washington right now. As I speak, the president is on air trying to save his healthcare plan. And Governor Dean, physician, author of a prescription book on healthcare, as well as his long service to the Democratic Party, is somebody who's been in the thick of this. Governor, what's going on right now?
Well, actually, mostly good things from my point of view. We're going to have a bill. It's going to take a while. It's probably not going to pass the Senate in August. It will contain a public option, but it takes time. And right now, it's very interesting. The media is partly responsible for this. I saw this in the campaign, my campaign. I'm sure it happens in every campaign, where Obama has a great week. Not only does it pass the bill that he wants with the public option, pass 3 committees, but the AMA, the most conservative doctors group that I know of, comes out and endorses Henry Waxman's bill, which in itself is extraordinary. And then the next Monday, the press is, spouting off Republican talking points about what a disaster it is. So these things go in cycles. I think he's doing great, and I think we'll have a bill, and that's good news because I don't think we can have an economy without a change in our healthcare system.
Well, it's interesting, though, Governor. You're known for a lot of things, and one of the things I know you for as head of the Democratic Party, you pursued what was called the 50-state strategy. You said, look, we're not just going to focus on 18 to 20 swing states as the party. We're going to go into states where we were written off before. You had to go up against a lot of the leaders of the party when you did that. There was some contention about that, but you did broaden the party. And right now, bringing this back to the healthcare debate, you're hearing a lot of moderate, centrist Democrats who are the ones concerned. You talk about Republicans, but it's Democrats. I just read a CNN piece just now that said, that quoted several of them saying they're baffled and frustrated, and it's particularly over the cost of the plan as well as the public option.
I think that, I hate to be partisan about this, but that's what I do, or did do for a living for a long time. The Republicans basically aren't playing. Jim DeMint, I think, probably said the truth. They really just want to make Obama look bad and bring him down by not passing the plan. So in the absence of that, you got to have some debate here, and I think the more conservative Democrats are doing us a service. I don't worry about that so much because as long as we do the public plan, that's real reform. If you don't do the public plan, you basically have the same system, and you shouldn't be wasting all this money on the system we already have. But I think it's necessary to have conservative people looking at this in a serious way too, and the Republicans just aren't looking at it in a serious way. So enter the Blue Dogs. Is it legitimate to question how much this costs? Absolutely. I think they're doing us a big service by raising these issues, and I think it's, in the end of the day, going to be a better bill because of it. Somebody has to raise these issues, and if the Republicans won't do it, then I'm glad the Democrats are doing it.
For a long time, there's a lot of talk about technology as a way to bring down healthcare costs, and you don't hear that so much in this particular debate. What's your view about the potential of IT to bring down healthcare costs?
I think over the long run, it's great. Over the short run, it's going to be really ugly. One of the searing experiences I had in my 12 years as governor was to bring IT into the tax department. And my basic rules for IT is it takes twice as long, it's twice as expensive, and you have to do it twice. It is brutal, and the problem is that the software folks never bother to talk to the new group that's being indoctrinated. Hospitals are pretty comfortable with IT now, but doctors and nurses are very uncomfortable with it. They're under enormous pressure in their offices to deliver things that can't be delivered, like seeing a patient in 6 minutes and getting them out the door. And this is not going to help. It'll be very painful, very ugly. In the long run, I think it'll be a good thing, but it's going to be very difficult in the short run.
So what's the solution for cost containment?
In the long run, Massachusetts actually started what Obama wants to do, minus the public option, which is one of the reasons they're having such trouble with costs. But the big announcement this past week, over the weekend, was because they're having such terrible trouble controlling the costs, they had a panel of a lot of different healthcare professionals, including doctors and hospitals, and they voted to pursue the end of fee-for-service medicine. And that's really what has to happen. And that'll be good for everybody. Right now, we get paid to do things that are unnecessary and very expensive. And so naturally, even those of us who are honest, and I think that's most people in most professions, including my own, do things they probably shouldn't do because the financial or incentives are, if it's a judgment call, do the extra $1,000, whatever it is. That shouldn't happen. In Britain today, the average general practitioner makes more than the average general practitioner does in the United States. So that, I think doctors are by this now, and I think you're going to see that change. I don't think you're going to see a lot of cost controls in the bill that passes Washington, but that's the next thing. Once everybody gets in the system, you can't continue to go up at 2.5 times the rate of inflation. And there are going to have to be some really big changes to figure out how to stop that.
So let's switch over to technology and governance and politics. Obviously, you were at the cutting edge of technology in the 2004 presidential cycle. We saw that evolve quite a bit in the 2008. Talk about that and where you think it's going in the future.
Well, let me give a quick shout out. The CEO of Meetup.com is here at this conference because I saw him somewhere. You know, our innovations in 2004 really didn't come from us. Our innovation was kind of a management innovation. That is, we saw all the stuff that these young people were doing all over the country, and we just helped them centralize it. And it was extraordinary. But the technology is moving so fast that it's having an enormous effect. In 2004, when I ran, YouTube didn't exist, or didn't really exist in the minds of most Americans. In 2006, 2 years later, YouTube was responsible for the Democrats controlling the United States Senate because of Jim Webb's campaign and the macaca moment for George Allen. There's no way George Allen loses that campaign without YouTube. Then in 2008, Facebook and MySpace are on the menu, and Barack Obama figures out how to use social networking. None of these things were invented for the sake of Meetup. Wasn't invented for politics, and neither was YouTube, and neither was social networking. But along comes Barack Obama and his extraordinary team, and they figured out how to build this enormous network. And the result is 2008 was the first election in the lifetime of anyone in this room in which more people voted who were under 35 years old than voted who were over 65 years old. This is the president of the new generation. They elected this first multicultural generation in the history of America, that is the first generation that sees themselves the way America really is, responded immediately by electing the first multicultural president. And then along come the Iranian elections in 2009. And of course, the Iranians shut down the internet, but they couldn't shut down their cell phone network without shutting down the whole country. And how did all the information get out? Twitter. So Twitter, I don't think, is going to have a big effect on American elections because you can always use the internet and it's a more complete version. But Twitter is going to have an enormous effect, as is the internet, on democratizing authoritarian nations like Iran and China, because if your choice is shutting down your entire economy or stopping news from getting out that you don't want to get out, that's going to be a very difficult choice to make. And the Iranians, I think, made the choice that's going to hurt them very much economically as time goes forward, whether they have sanctions on them or not. So the pace of the technology is just mind-boggling, and it's having an enormous effect, not just in the United States, but now we're going to be seeing a huge democratizing and empowering effect on individuals away from power, taking power away from government and giving it to individuals because of the extraordinary power of electronic communications.
Do you think that's going to continue in Iran? I mean, there's been a crackdown now, and we've seen this in the past where we've seen some opening. There was a lot of potential promise in China early on with the internet. People thought that was going to be a great democratizing force. You know, is there a limit to how far it can?
Well, look, for every sort of revolution, and this is a kind of a revolution in some ways, there's always a counter-revolution. I think that these authoritarian countries are going to adapt. I spend some time with the Chinese, not the senior leadership, but the more middle communications people, probably some of whom are in the intelligence service, not very well concealed. And they actually are developing a feedback loop of, we wouldn't call it democracy, but they do, where it matters to them what people in the villages think. They know they have to contend with that, and the way they do it is not the way we do it, is by having elections and so forth, but they do, actually they have had elections for local offices. It's very controlled, but they understand that they have to let up a little bit if they want to join the modern world in terms of their economy, which they very much want to do. So it's true. I think what we'll see is not going to see Iran and China develop into an American-style democracy, but I do think they know, and the mullahs know. The mullahs are split now, and you can read the papers and see there's a debate inside this very conservative, authoritarian government in Iran about how much leeway now to give their own people. This is the same debate that Deng Xiaoping was at the front of 20 years ago in China. So it does force other societies to evolve, and I don't think you're going to see them look like us, but I think they're going to see much more individual power if they want to take advantage of the benefits of capitalism, which they do, because that is, in fact, about individuals making choice with collective results.
Looking back locally, you and I had a fascinating conversation just now in the green room about how technology enables citizens and companies to kind of hopscotch over the political process and government in some ways. Talk about that and some examples of where you...
Yeah, this is a dirty little secret about the internet, which makes me uncomfortable because I actually don't know where it's going, but it's probably for people in my occupation, it's I may be unemployed shortly. The internet also puts politicians out of business because it makes it easier to get around authority structures. I give you a very simple example. If you want to clean up a stream 20 years ago, actually 30 years ago, I got my start in politics by wanting access to the waterfront in Burlington, Vermont, where there was a railroad line and a lot of condo developers and so we started a citizens group, we petitioned the government, we got people to call state senators, and after a very long campaign, we got open access to the waterfront and a big bike path, et cetera. Today, on the net, people can simply organize and go do all kinds of things, including find lawyers who will take their case pro bono without going through the government. A small example, you want to clean up a stream, why bother to go to the local officials? Why not just get 100 of your friends who are interested to put on t-shirts one Saturday and go down and clean up the stream? Well, businesses can do the same thing. The previous panel I thought was incredibly interesting, and they really talked about a lot of developments that didn't require government to make what they wanted to work. I remember Ira complained that, well, you know, the government's always late. The politicians never quite get around to incorporating these extraordinary... Well, guess what? This new generation using the net, I think, is going to find a way to bypass them entirely in a lot of areas. So I don't know what that means. And this is something that's just become clear to me over the last couple of years. But I do think that our own government, if it can't speed up, is going to get run over by both the private sector and these young people who are doing this in their own politics over the net. And the institutions that we've designed, to, even in a democracy, which are relatively flexible, are going to be pushed aside if they can't become even more responsive than they are. And they have become a lot more responsive over the last 30 years, and especially over the last 5. But it's not fast enough for this extraordinary technology.
And companies, too, not just citizens. Companies are...
Well, the obvious victim is the print media so far. If you can't figure out how to make money giving away your product for free, you're in a lot of trouble. And it's a huge... It's an enormous... I mean, I don't know what I would do if I were trying to run a newspaper today. I don't have a solution to that either. But that's a perfect example of where the net is moving so fast that very big, important companies are having trouble responding to it fast enough to stay out of bankruptcy court.
Do you see, looking forward to next year, we have a midterm election, we have a presidential election. Can you talk in a couple years after that, do you have any thoughts about where technology will move in those years, and also how the Obama administration is using technology in its own governance now?
Well, the one thing is the Obama administration is the first group of people I think has been really successful in maintaining a grassroots organization after they won the White House. Now, it's the first time this has ever been done, so there's lots of mistakes, lots of things that don't quite work. I mean, they're feeling their way along, but it's an extraordinary development. I can't possibly predict what the next technological innovation is, and anybody who does that in this room is going to make a lot of money in the next couple of years. Nobody knows what it is, but we do know, judging in the last 4 elections, mine, the 2006, Obama's, and Iran, that there are going to be people who find whatever extraordinary technological innovations come along and find out immediately what the political adaptation is and use them in some very unpredictable way. I see my time is up. Do I get to tell one very short story?
Please tell a story.
This is a very quick story, and then I promise to get off. About 4 years ago or 3 years ago, when I was first chairman, I came into LA to talk to a group of 20 and early 30s billionaires, entrepreneurs, some tech, some hedge fund operators, and about giving money to the Democratic Party. And so I gave them the pitch and asked them to write big fat checks, and they said, yeah, but tell us what we can really do. And I said, with due respect, because I know they're covering this meeting, I said, well, you can help me figure out how to counter Fox. And so they said, well, you can, without cracking a smile or missing a beat, they said, well, you're certainly never going to build a network like Fox because it's billions and billions of dollars in infrastructure. But if you were, this is 3 years ago, if you had your own news operation, you put it out and wikied it and let people edit it. And I said, well, I can't do that. This is our message. I mean, okay, then you don't have to do that, but you've got to update it every 30 seconds. Then you put it out over a computer, and you recruit 100 million computers because the maximum capacity of a computer to put out any video streaming is 70. And so you create this 100 million computer network, and all of a sudden, voila, you have the Democratic National Committee evening news that anybody can watch. And my jaw just dropped. Immediately before my eyes, I saw something that I'm pretty sure is going to happen within all of our lifetimes and maybe a lot sooner, which is people are just going to get flat screens up on their wall, and instead of TV dollars, they're going to have computers, and they're going to have an array of whatever they want for the evening. And I just thought to myself, this country's going to be in pretty good hands after I'm gone.
It's even harder to sell advertising. I wish we could take... Governor, I think you whet our appetite to talk more about this, so thank you so much. It was absolutely terrific.
Thanks for having me on. Thank you.